Hello there my RPG lovers and welcome to another video. There are many RPGs out there with great magic gameplay. The actual system behind those spellcasting mechanics is usually really simplistic. I'm not saying that as a bad thing, of course. These systems don't need to be extremely deep or innovative in order to be good. Things shouldn't be complicated just for the sake of it. But every once in a while we can see some amazing ideas in games, and unfortunately, more often than not, they get overlooked and completely forgotten. The magic system from Two Worlds 2 is one of those examples. This open world RPG was pretty mediocre in general, but the magic gameplay was amazing. It was held back by everything around it though, so it didn't have a fair chance to reach its potential. No one really tried to replicate this system or take some inspiration from it, although that's not surprising at all because it seems really hard to do and especially balanced properly. So you're probably wondering what the hell I'm talking about if you never played this game. Why exactly is this particular magic system so good? You might remember that I already have a similar video about this which I published back in 2019. I wasn't really happy with that video to be honest, and it's been a while since then, so I really wanted to make a new one. Anyway, the magic system in Two Worlds 2 allows the player to create its own spells. If you played Oblivion, you could think this is something like the spell making system from that game, but it's a lot more superior. A lot of people love this feature in Oblivion and Morrowind as well. It's not hard to see why. It feels rewarding when you make something by yourself and see it perform in action. That's probably the main appeal when it comes to these features. To start making spells in Two Worlds 2, you need to have an amulet and some magic cards. The first slot is for the effect card and the second is for the carrier. Before we go deeper into this system, I want to show you the simple fireball spell and the process of making it. We open up the amulet and select the fire effect card along with the missile carrier cards. In order for the fire missile to actually do some damage, we need to add the damaging modifier that's on the left side of the screen. And that's pretty much it. We put the amulet on the hotbar, select it and fire away. Even though it takes a few extra steps to create the most basic projectile spell, it's not too complicated. But let's see what else we can do with this fireball spell. By the way, if we didn't add the damage effect card, we could still cast the fireball, but it would just blind the enemy for a couple of seconds, which is like the totally different spell. These cards on both sides are modifiers, which means that each of them will modify the effect of the spell in a particular way. Besides the damaging effect, we can add a homing modifier card which will basically give our spell a lock-on system. And it works really simple. When you start casting the fireball, you will automatically lock on the nearest enemy. Then we have the ricochet modifier card. This modifier is pretty self-explanatory. Upon impact, the missile will ricochet and it looks like this. But the thing is, you can actually stack the ricochet cards, giving your missiles multiple ricochet effects. Now do take in mind that each of these cards have to be bought in the game in order for you to use them. For the purpose of making this video, I obviously cheated a bit to get a lot of cards, but if you want to play as a regular mage in this game, you will need to have a lot of gold. Especially when you want to stack cards, because you'll have to buy each of them and you'll have to find a merchant that sells them. Speaking about stacking cards, I didn't mention that you can stack your effect and carrier cards. So if you're wondering how to increase the damage of your fireball, you just simply stack the fire effect cards. The carrier card is stackable as well, in this case that will be the missile cards. But instead of increasing your damage, stacking this card will increase the velocity of your missile. You could see the speed of the most basic fireball before, it looks like this. And this is how it looks when you stack the maximum number of missile cards. The last modifier card that we can add to our fireball spell is called Spray, and it splits your missile into 3 projectiles. This is where it's starting to get a bit crazy. This is how the fireball spell looks with maxed out damage, velocity, ricochet and spray. Pretty crazy stuff, and we only scratched the surface of what can be done. You might have noticed that the spell won't lock on the nearest enemy when I casted the strongest fireball spell with all the modifiers. This is because the homing effect becomes different when you add the spray modifier. Your missile won't lock on the nearest enemy, but if you manage to hit something with at least one of the missiles, that same missile will automatically track down the next target in the area. After some testing, I'm pretty sure that's the way it works, although the game doesn't tell you this. Okay, that would be the fireball spell, and the same goes for other elemental spells in the game. You can make a projectile spell with other elements as well. Two Worlds 2 have 5 schools of magic, and each of those schools have 3 different effect cards. So where do we go from here? Well, you might notice another row in the spell amulet. There are actually 3 rows in total, which means that we can further increase the effect of our fireball projectile. You could just add some more damaging effects or go with some crazy combinations. For example, if we use the Earth card as an effect in the second row, along with some modifiers, the fireball creates a rain of rocks upon impact. So now you have a fireball with raining rocks. Yeah. And in case you already forgot, the fireball can split into 7 missiles if you have the spray modifier cards, and each of them can create rain of rocks if they manage to hit the targets. I hope you're starting to realize how crazy this whole thing is, but trust me, you haven't seen anything crazy yet. Now, you should have an idea of how the system works, so let's see some interesting spells that you can make. We only talked about the fire effect and the projectile carrier, and I didn't mention these 2 modifiers on the left side. One of them is used to give your spells increased duration, and the other one is mostly used for creating cast on cell spells. Now, obviously, this system is not without its limitations. You can't just slap all of these modifiers into everything. Anyway, one particular playstyle which is appealing to a lot of people who play mages in RPGs is summoning magic. Two Worlds 2 definitely doesn't disappoint when it comes to this. Basically, each element effect card is used to summon different creatures. But since this system is really flexible, you can even make your summoning spells a lot more interesting. While you can definitely just make a simple summoning spell, it's a lot more fun to come up with a crazier idea. Check this out. We can create a trap which inflicts some frost damage when triggered, releases a couple of lightning projectiles, which will then summon skeletons upon impact. Yep, that's a thing, because why not? Or how about this? You can create a rain of anvils, which obviously does AoE damage, but then you can combine that with a tornado spell. And as you can see, the tornado anvil madness will now follow you and do some serious damage along the way. You can even control it in a particular way to start levitating. It's just one of the examples of how this magic system encourages you to be creative. There are a lot more unique effects that you can come up with by combining a couple of spells. As if one single spell can be crazy enough with multiple functions. Besides those crazy spell combinations, you can also create some regular spells that you would expect to see in a game like this. You can walk on water, make your jumps a lot higher, become invisible, and so on. That should be enough to convince you how crazy this system is. Like I already said, the whole premise about creating your own spells is great, and I wish more RPGs would start including similar features. The problem is, a lot of developers nowadays seem to be overly concerned with balancing. I'm not saying the game shouldn't be balanced, but after all, it's a single-player RPG, who cares if you can find a couple of ways to break the game? I'm just saying that studios should be more concerned about creating fun gameplay mechanics, rather than trying to focus on balancing that much. Even though I had a lot of praise in this video for the magic system in Two Worlds 2, I have a hard time recommending buying this game now. Why? Well, the business philosophy of this publisher is really shady. They implemented microtransactions into this single-player RPG a couple of years ago, and they released a DLC that's, how to put this, awful.
Target engaged.
I should have become an engineer.
Target destroyed. Hasta la vista, baby.
I've made a video about this DLC before that I recommend watching for the laughs at least. A big part of Reality Pump, the development studio for this franchise, left, and some of them joined CD Projekt Red. So even though I think the vanilla game is worth playing for at least one playthrough, I really don't recommend buying this game now. Maybe on some big sale or something, but who am I to tell you how to spend your money? That would be it for this video. If you enjoyed, pressing the thumbs up button would mean a lot. Don't forget to subscribe for more RPG content. If you want to support the channel in the long run, consider becoming a Patreon or a YouTube member. You can get your name on the end credits, as well as some other perks like early access to videos, Discord roles, my plans for future content, etc, etc. That would be all, and I'll see you in the next one.